Okay, we have a mic problem, so we're sharing. So a couple of quick announcements before we get started. We had a little prayer time together down there during worship. That was nice. I know that the Lord is going to do something special through Claire's message tonight. One, because I know some of her story, and two, because the enemy did everything he could to keep us from doing this tonight, including losing half the dinner in my car on the way here. So we've had one of those times, and usually that tells me that God is up to something and the enemy wants to stop it. Darlene is going to pass a plate, and I want you to know what happens with that, and just give as according to what the Lord leads you. Nobody here takes a penny. We're all volunteers. We do this because we believe in what the Lord is doing through this movement. One of the things we do with that, though, is we buy Life Recovery Bibles, and we give them out. We give them out to jail. Chaplain Dave is here, and I'm auxiliary chaplain. We go out there on Wednesday nights and bring a service, and one of the things we want them to do is to have access to the Word in a way that makes sense to them, and the Life Recovery Bibles are a great way to do that. But they're for you as well. If you don't have one and you want one, at the end of her talk, we'll have time for you to come up and get that with some other things. We have some other books. We always have giveaways here, and we want to be a blessing to the community. If it's your first time with us, online or in person, know that we do this now every Saturday. In the new year, we're probably moving to Tuesday, possibly in this room, possibly another location. And that's just to make it more accessible. But for the rest of the year, we're here every Saturday at 6 o'clock, except the last Saturday where we eat at 5 and have a testimony at 6. Next week, Dr. David Sutton will be back. He's been traveling around the world, speaking in Jamaica, Latvia, Mexico, Tennessee. Not that Tennessee falls right in line with Mexico and Latvia, but he's been all over, and he's been blessing us with his presence the first Saturday of every month for the last couple of years. The exception will be December, where the first Saturday of the month he's again speaking in another country, so he'll be here the second Saturday of December. But he's an excellent communicator. He knows the Word and the big book inside out and has a great delivery. Don't miss that. Another thing I want to talk about is Miracle on the Water. If you're not aware, and this is on our Facebook page as well, and I'll share it again when I get home tonight, November 12th through the 18th out at Causeway Cove Marina. I don't care if you are in Tennessee or Latvia. You need to come here and join us because it'll be an awesome time of prayer, praise, and worship with a lot of opportunities to receive prayer, deliverance, healing, and a variety of other wonderful things, and not to mention the least of which is being with other believers and lifting up the Lord and feeling His presence. So that's all I have, and I'm going to re-mic Claire so she can go and just say thank you, Lord, for what we're about to receive.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Won't God do it? Won't God do it? I'm going to try to read my chicken scratch to you, so please bear with me, okay? My name is Claire, and I am a believer in Jesus Christ who has overcome addiction, abandonment, abortion, sexual and mental abuse. I came from a family of 12 brothers and sisters. Actually, there were 13, but I had a little brother that died when he was 4 months old. My father was an alcoholic. My mother, by the time she was 32, had 10 kids. I never understood why at the age of 6 months old, I was going into foster homes. It was always me and my 2 little sisters, but my older brothers and sisters would stay home. I felt so alone and unwanted. Being bounced back and forth, I did not know where I belonged. The foster home I spent the longest in, at a young age, my foster father began to sexually molest me. And it continued to do so as I started getting older. My foster mother was very physically abusive. If my shoes weren't put in the closet right, she would beat me. And I knew something wasn't right between her and my foster father because they slept in separate bedrooms. As a child, you still know, a married couple, they usually sleep together. And I believe she knew something was going on because of the separate bedroom. But instead of taking it out on her husband, she took it out on me. I just wanted to be back home with my mom, my dad, my brothers and sisters. I did not care that we were poor and sometimes had to sleep on the floor on mats. It didn't matter. As a little girl, I didn't know who to go to for safety. It was the big people who were supposed to be taking care of me, the ones who were supposed to protect me, and they were the ones that were hurting me. I was sent to a Catholic school down the street from my foster home, and I was born in a Catholic family, so going to a private Catholic school was okay with me, even though they weren't Catholic. But they sent me to this private school, and when I was in the second grade, the nun, she took a piece of chalk and she drew a line down the board, and on one side she wrote heaven, and on the other side she wrote hell. And on the heaven side, she drew pretty pictures like flowers in the sun and stick people smiling. And on the hell side, she drew flames, and you could tell it was faces of people screaming in terror. And she took her pointer and she said, good people go to heaven, bad people go to hell. Now it's time to go out on the playground. She sent us out on the playground. And I don't even remember what I was doing wrong, but I distinctly remember another old nun, coming snatching me up from behind, swinging me around, saying, you're a bad girl. And it hit me with what the nun had just said. Good people go to heaven, bad people go to hell. I'm a bad girl. I'm going to hell. I really believed that. And from that moment on, I was very afraid of God. I thought anything that was bad happening was because I was a bad girl. And one of those bad things that happened, my daddy finally got us all under the same roof one year, and that was my dream. I wanted to be home with mom and dad and my brothers and sisters, and he got us all under the same roof. I thought my daddy was going to stop drinking. I thought we would never be separated again. That was my dream anyway. It was just before the holidays. My daddy wanted to surprise my mom by flying my grandmother in from New Jersey into Detroit. She'd never been on a plane before. She'd never been in Michigan. And it was the day before Christmas. She got there that morning. And that evening, you couldn't tell me to go to bed. Oh, no, no, no. My daddy had bought, it was old, and it was a corner lot, and it had, I don't know if anybody ever saw Jackie Gleason, the old Jackie Gleason show. Remember, his friend lived in the apartment upstairs. He lived downstairs. Well, my daddy bought the whole place, and it had the stairwell that you go up into the other apartment. And he slept in what used to be the kitchen upstairs. But that night, nah, you weren't getting me to go to bed. I wanted to be downstairs with Mama and Grandma and hearing everything that they were saying. But I got so tired because they were talking so long. I finally ended up crawling on one of the couches downstairs and falling asleep. The next thing I remember was a man picking me up off the couch. And when I opened up my eyes, this man had a big hat on and a rubber jacket. And I immediately went into fright mode, scared, and I started kicking and screaming. And in a very sweet, calm voice, he said, honey, I'm a fireman. I'm not going to hurt you. I need to get you out of the house. When he carried me through the house into the kitchen, I saw my grandma's body. Grandma had tried to get up the stairwell, because you got to open up the door to get up the stairwell. And when she got upstairs, she opened up the door to get upstairs and was just overcome by the smoke and came tumbling down the stairs. It must have just happened, because when the firemen took me in there, they had to literally carry me over her body. They didn't have the paramedics coming in at that time. They carried me outside, and they already had my two little sisters out there, and all the neighbors in the neighborhood were there. I mean, there was fire trucks from like 3 different counties, Gibraltar, Wyandotte, and somewhere else, and it was a corner lot. So one of the neighbors took me and my 2 little sisters, and I'm sure they weren't thinking. I'm sure they were doing it out of the kindness of their heart. But they put me and my 2 little sisters in a bedroom where we could see out the window and see our house burning down. Everyone got out except my daddy. Grandma died also. It was Christmas Eve. It was my mom's mother and her husband This totally devastated my mom. And within less than a week, my mom had a total breakdown. My mom was put into a lockdown mental facility. I knew my life would never be the same again. We were taken to a facility in Detroit full of kids, and I just remember the people were not very nice. The foster parents that I was with the longest were called, and they were willing to take us back. But for me, I was going back to my nightmare. I was going back to the boogeyman. I didn't tell because I didn't trust. The abuse continued. My mom finally got out of the mental facility and took us girls. I was happy to be home with her, but that didn't stop me from getting in trouble. When I was 13, I had gotten in trouble and was looking at 21 days in juvie, and Detroit juvie was no joke. No joke. So I was scared, and I knew my mom was under a lot of stress. Again, I was very afraid because I was afraid she was having too much of a hard time and was going to send me away again, that she couldn't handle it. Back to the foster home. He was the boogeyman, and I was afraid of the dark. I knew if I stuck around, I was going to be sent away, so I chose the dark. I got in touch with one of my brother's ex-girlfriends, and I asked her if she wanted to go to Florida with me. She said yes. It was 2 weeks before my 14th birthday. We started hitchhiking from Michigan to Florida. And when we got to the Ohio state line, which you know Detroit's pretty close to the Ohio state line, a truck driver stopped, and he was going all the way to Miami. He took one look at me, because mind you, I look like an 11-year-old with makeup on because I was so tiny, weighed maybe 70 pounds. And I could see the doubt in his eyes. And I told him, if he didn't give us a ride, I was just going to keep on running. So in a very kind voice, he said, "Hop in, girls." There was no cell phones back then, so he couldn't call the police on me. But I believe to this day that he was an angel that God sent to me. This man was so kind. Whenever we would stop, I felt so safe with him because whenever we would stop, we'd stop at truck stops, and he would always buy us food. And then when it was time to sleep, he had a big bed, and he would send us girls into the bed. He'd close the curtain, and he'd sleep in his seat. He never bothered us, and I just felt very safe with this man. He even bought me sunglasses, and I said when it was time to sleep, I just felt very safe. And we got as far as Atlanta, Georgia, to a truck stop, and a car pulled up with 4 young men. Now, mind you, the girl that I'm with, my brother's ex-girlfriend's 18, and she's gorgeous. And these guys started hollering at her, and she walked over there and started talking to them, and she came back and told me, "We're going to ride with these guys to Florida," and that I was to go tell my angel of a friend. I was to go tell my angel of a friend goodbye. And I started to cry. And she told me to toughen up and set me on my way to tell this angel of a man goodbye. When I told him we were not going with him anymore, he reached in his pocket, pulled 3 20s, opened up my hand, and with the kindest voice, he said, "I will keep you in my prayers, honey." And he gave me a hug. Reluctantly, I got in the car with my friend. These young men were college students from Gainesville. When we arrived in Gainesville, we were dropped off in a corner, and less than 15 minutes later, a car pulled up. A young man hollered at my friend. She went over to talk to the guy and came back and told me to wait for her, that she would be back. I've never seen her to this day. I sat on that corner crying. Because she was supposed to be with me. She was kind of like my safety because she was older than me and she was going to watch out for me. But now she's gone. And I'm by myself, sitting in a place that I don't know anybody. And I'm scared. And I don't know what to do. I can't tell you how many hours I sat there. And then some street people came up to me. There was a lot back then that would panhandle on the street corner. People were kind of love back then, the peace and love. And They came up to me and asked me what was wrong, and I told them about my friend, and they said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of you." So they taught me how to panhandle. They showed me good places to live in the woods. And if I got lucky, there was an abandoned house. So we'd find an abandoned house, but it was mostly the woods. At that time, I just wanted to be out of reality. I had to be high to show no fear, even if I felt it inside. I was only on the streets a few days before I was introduced to MDA, cocaine, and heroin. I was in a house one night wondering why everybody was going into the bathroom. Because, usually there's one toilet. Why is there 6 people in the bathroom? So I asked this guy, and he said, "Well, let me show you." And he took me in the bathroom, and that's when I saw the needles. I was always afraid of needles. But he told me it's not the needle that hurts, but the medicine that's inside them. But this medicine will make you feel good. And mind you, I had to try to not show fear. I wanted to be just as big and tough as the next person. So, trying to swallow my fear, I stuck my arm out and I took it. I had never had anything take me away like the needle and the drugs inside of them. I became the littlest and youngest junkie at that time. By the time I was 17, I had lived a lifetime. More rapes than I can remember, being beaten and left for dead, no veins left. What was once my great escape had turned into my greatest nightmare. Before I wanted it, now I needed it. I met an older girl. She was actually a young woman. She lived in Jacksonville, and she told me that she could get me a job. And I wanted to get off the street. I didn't have an education. I barely finished the 8th grade. And she told me, "First, we have to get you a fake ID." Well, back then, the Florida driver's license had no pictures on it. They were just a peach colored, and she got me a driver's license with a Social Security card, which at that time made me 21, so I had to wear extra makeup. But I don't think it mattered. She took me to this downtown bar in Jacksonville, little corner dive bar in Jacksonville. I didn't even know what she was going to have me doing, but we walked in and to the bar, and she took me in the back and introduced me to this man that was smoking a cigar, and he just looked me up and down, and he called another girl to come give me an outfit. And then she told me what it is that I was supposed to do. She told me that I was going to dance. One of my favorite things growing up was dancing. I won my first dance contest when I was 6 years old. So I always loved to dance. But dancing in a bar in front of strange men that reminded me of men that had hurt me, no way. She saw how scared and nervous I was, and she went into her bag and pulled out a pill. She told me to take it. She told me everyone is nervous the first time. She said that when you are on stage, you won't even see anyone. Now, mind you, I'm 16. You won't see anyone in the bar, only the stage lights. She told me that I could put myself into another world. She told me the money was good, really good. I had a habit to feed, so I pushed through my fear, drank some drinks, and got on that stage. I did put myself in another world. It wasn't hard with the pills and the liquor, and the money was good. What was hard became simple. As long as I had the drugs in me, I could do anything, except that got old. All the drugs couldn't get rid of the brokenness that I felt. All the money couldn't get rid of the loneliness I felt, and all the liquor couldn't help me escape the feeling of how cheap and disgusting my life was now. And so I ran once again back to the streets. I met a man on the streets who would soon become my husband. There was something different about this man. He wasn't mean to me, and he really loved me. He took me home to meet his mother, and she took an immediate dislike to me. I was a junkie off the streets. I was high when I met her, and she threw us off of her property. We found a place to live in the woods. He was good to me. He did his best. He took care of me by giving plasma. for money. 2 months into the relationship, I found out I was pregnant. His mother let us move in with her when she found out I was pregnant. And after I had my son, she told my husband that she would keep the baby until my husband was able to work. But she lived in a very small town and told us we needed to go to a bigger city for him to find a job. So we left, and we left my son there. Of course, the drugs just kept on getting worse. For the sake of time, I'm going to jump ahead. Jobs were sporadic, and the drug use didn't stop. But God has a way of stopping things when he is pursuing you, and you don't even know it. You don't even know it. I had gotten pregnant again, and 9 days after having my baby, I had gotten into a serious car accident. At that time, I had finally gotten into a HUD apartment. Mind you, I only lived out in the woods. When I went into that HUD apartment, the light switch was there, and I would turn it off, turn it on, turn it off. It just amazed me because it was my light, you know? It was amazing. But anyway, so I had that, and my next door neighbor was the maintenance man of that apartment complex, and he told me, if you ever need anything or you need a ride, because I didn't know how to drive, never learned until I was in my 30s, but maybe late 20s. But anyway, so my husband wasn't with me at the time. He was working out of town, and so I went next door. I asked my girlfriend's aunt to stay with my son, and I went and asked him if he would give me a ride. It was raining, just a little bit. And you know how Florida is. You go a little ways, then all of a sudden the heavens open up. Well, that's what happened. The heavens opened up. And we were on a very curvy road, and on both sides of the road were huge ditches. And we went around a curve, and the car just fishtailed. It was like being on a sheet of ice. And when we spun, we ran off the road head-on into a huge concrete culvert. My side of the car took the impact. And I was in an older car. Well, it really wasn't that old then, you know, but it just had the seat belt that came around your waist. But on impact, it smashed in that side, popped my door open, and popped the seat belt right off, and I was ejected from the car. Now, I'm knocked slap out. I'm on impact. I'm knocked out. And my body was laying very close to the ditch, and it's pouring down rain. So the guy that saw the accident and the guy that was driving, he managed to get out. They thought they needed to move me because I was going to probably slip into the ditch and drown. Now, mind you, my thoughts were not on God. I was afraid of God. But if this wasn't God, I don't know what is. I'm knocked out. They are moving me, and I opened up my eyes just long enough to say, "Put me down, my neck, my neck." I could literally feel my neck breaking. And they set me back down, and I went right back out again. I was taken into Shands in Gainesville. And 24 hours after I broke my neck, they flew a neurosurgeon in from Mayo Clinic, Rochester, Minnesota. Back then, there were no Mayo Clinics in Florida. The closest one was in Rochester. Little did I know he was a Christian doctor. When he walked in my room, he said, "Young lady, I hope you don't think that any man in this hospital saved your life." And he pointed up. He goes, "Because in my book, you should not be here right now." Then he proceeds to tell me about, I'm caught. He's telling me about the old Bible days. He said, back in the old Bible days, this is a doctor, mind you. He said, back in the old Bible days, if they hung a man and a man lived, I don't know how true this is, but he told me this. He said, if a man lived, they would never rehang him because they believed it was God's will that he lived. You, young lady, had a hangman's break. My neck snapped right at the base of my skull. And then when he said that, I didn't tell you. Did I tell you about the hand? Did I tell you that? Okay, when I was by the ditch, laying, I'm knocked out. And before I opened up my eyes, I felt this huge hand. I can still remember. The palm was right here. This thumb was behind this ear. These two fingers were up here. And these two were behind this ear. I felt that hand. I opened up my eyes. I didn't say anything. I didn't see anything. But that's when I screamed, put me down, my neck, my neck. They put me back down, went back out again. Got to tell you that part. Because when the doctor said, when he was telling me about the hangman's break, I remembered the hand. And I told him about the hand. He said, that was the hand of God or one of his warrior angels. Yes. That's what he said. He said, if you would have not come to for that split second, your spinal cord would and vocal cord would have been severed and you would be dead. He said, you came to just long enough to save your life. God saved your life. Okay. Shortly after that, my husband was found shot in the head and buried in a shallow grave. Do you think I was grateful to be alive? And the only reason my husband was found, and I just know he was there, and then he wasn't. But they had me on so much medication, and it wasn't medicine like, oh, you feel, It was like, I had no concept of time. I didn't know if a day was a week was a month, or a month was a year. So my husband was there, then he wasn't. So I don't even know. I didn't even know how long it had been, but a man was walking his dog, his German Shepherd, and you know how dogs get their nose to the ground, was smelling, and he went to and he started digging. And the guy's looking, what's he? And then he just goes to look, and he noticed that there's a sleeping bag. It was a sleeping bag. It was my husband's body was in the sleeping bag, and he'd been shot in the head. Do you think I was grateful? Nah, not at all. If anything, I was angry. I was angry at God for not taking me. I have no children, no husband, no reason to live. I was right. That doctor was wrong. So I began a quest to kill myself. I was too chicken to stick a gun to my head. So what was the next thing? Drink and drug myself to death. And what better place to go? New Orleans, because you can drink 24/7. So I went out to New Orleans. I got a job at a bar right on Bourbon Street, lived upstairs from the bar that I worked at, drank so much liquor, shot so many drugs, and I wouldn't die. And I literally saw, when I would look in the mirror, I would see a dead person looking back at me, a dead person who refused to lay down and die. And I could not figure out, why can't I just die? I mean, it didn't matter how much I did. Did I OD a few? Absolutely, but I always came back. And I just didn't get it, but God knew. Then I got into a really, really abusive relationship with this guy. One night he hit me, knocked me to the floor, and pulled his gun out that he had under his bed, a box of bullets, and I'm sitting on the floor, literally watching him. Now this guy had blue eyes, sky blue eyes, but I was looking in the eyes of a madman. His eyes were just black. And I watched him put bullets in every chamber, and I was sitting on the floor, because I wasn't about to move, because he would have knocked me right back down again. And I was thinking, I wonder what it's going to feel like to die. I didn't feel it. I just felt numb. And he took the gun, I held it to my head, and he pulled the trigger. The gun didn't go off. And I'm telling you, I watched him put bullets in every one of the chambers. Now, I was surprised, but looking into his eyes was total shock. He dropped that gun and ran. You know, he said he was going to blow my head off and then he was going to kill himself. And he was dead serious because he stuck that gun to my head and pulled the trigger. But God had a different plan. I didn't see that then. I told you I was looking in the eyes of a madman. Back then, I did not know that God was pursuing me. I look back now and I see how much he was pursuing me. Still broken and addicted, some more drug busts, some more times in jails. I got into a relationship with someone, and got pregnant with my youngest son, TJ. TJ is sitting out in the audience right now. TJ is actually my miracle baby because 6 months before I got pregnant with TJ, I was out on a fishing boat and I was having really bad pains. I was throwing up. They had to bring me in. I was taken to the emergency room here at Lawnwood. The doctor came in, pressed on my stomach. I thought I was going to come off that table. And I think he was a Japanese doctor. He goes, "You'll got kidney infection." And he gives me medicine to take for 10 days. And TJ's dad drops me off at this place on Indian Street outside of Fort Pierce, on the other side of Fort Pierce. Indian Street, no phone, no car, 10 days worth of medicine. And the woman that owned that place, she wasn't home. She's always with her boyfriend. So here I am by myself. By the third day, I was literally crawling from the couch to the kitchen to get water. No, by the third day, I was hallucinating. The second day, I was crawling to the kitchen to get water. The reason I was hallucinating was the poison that was going through my system. Thank God she came home to get a change of clothes, because if she wouldn't have, I would be dead. She came home, she looked at me, and she goes, "My God, you look like you're dying." Well, I was. She took me to the emergency room. They rushed me in to surgery. I was pregnant in my tube, and it ruptured. All that poison was going through my system. That's why I was hallucinating. And they told me, your female organs were damaged. We're taking your tube out. You're never going to be able to have any babies. 6 months later, I was pregnant with TJ. So TJ is my man. Okay. And then I have to say, and this was a hard thing for me to say because my son's sitting right there, but TJ has always understood stuff that I've been through. When TJ was just a baby, listen, if I could have stopped doing what I was doing, I would have stopped a long time ago. His dad and I were bad on crack cocaine. I mean, I tried, but he was a baby, and his dad didn't have a license, so he would send me down there to get the crack. Well, the second time I went down, he was just a little one, I got busted. It's probably the best thing that happened to me. I didn't see it then. I got busted, and TJ was just a baby. And I went to jail here in Fort Pierce. Well, that's when it was on 2nd Street, right across from St. Andrews. And that was probably the best thing that happened at that time because, see, I'd never heard, being honest, I never heard about AA, about NA. I mean, people didn't talk to me about Jesus, and if they did, I'm like, anything to do with God, I don't want to hear it because I was afraid. But the judge evidently saw something in me because he said, "I'm going to put you on probation, and I want you to do mandatory NA meetings." And that's when going to St. Andrews was my first NA meeting with St. Andrews Church. And that was probably the first time that I really knew that God wasn't chasing me around with lightning bolts ready to strike me because I was doing something wrong. I was introduced to a very loving God. And that's when I really started to fall in love with Jesus. But did that make me be good? No. I really, really tried. I struggled with being good because, see, how could I invite Jesus into the rooms I was afraid to go into? I didn't want to visit those rooms where the abortions and the abuse and I didn't want to go there, so why was I going to allow Jesus in there? But the healing came when I allowed that to happen. I fought it for many years, and it was actually, even though it was years later, what really did it is, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Teen Challenge, David Wilkerson's. They have women's centers and men's centers. The name just stuck. But that's what did it for me. Just going in and out of recovery, I couldn't, even with some recent stuff that's gone on. But what I have come to realize, I have allowed Jesus into those rooms to do those healings. I want to take you just real quick. When I lived in Stewart, and when my godparents had paid for me to be in a halfway house after everything happened with the cocaine bust. to live in Stewart and go into a halfway house. And my son, hardest thing I could ever done was Samaritan Home for Boys, and I'll never forget him saying, I hate you, I'll never forgive you for doing this. But I knew that if I didn't do something, he would lose me forever, either to prison or I was going to die. So I knew that it had to be done, and it was hard. And actually, he thrived there. TJ had these dead eyes when he went in there, and there they called him. He was like the greeter for all the sewers, and these bright eyes, the dimple always showing. They just loved him in there. But okay, so things started to come together, and then 3 years later, and I'm telling you, I lived at Fellowship Hall. I lived recovery, was going to church. I got this really good job in Sewell's Point, and it was working for an international fine art company. And I'm telling you, when we were cramming for a show, I was there 7 days a week. Sometimes I would get there at 8:30 in the morning. Sometimes I wouldn't walk out till late. And so now, when I'm cramming for a show, there's no meetings, there's no church. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just focused on this job. And the night before I was supposed to pick up my 3rd year medallion, I stopped at a store in Stewart. No thought, y'all, no thought. I was just going to stop and get a soda. I was everything: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. I was all of those. And I pulled into that store before I went to the apartment, and my eyes went down to this pint of wild Irish rose. Still no thought. I just reached down, I picked it up, I went and paid for it, and I sat in my car, and I drank that pint down. The addict in me woke up. Crack. I've never done it in Stewart. There's a Martin Luther King Boulevard in just every town, so let me go see if I can find some crack. I went down Martin Luther King Boulevard, turned down one of the side streets, and there's some guys out in front, and I asked them, and they came out. Then I heard one of them go, 86. Well, if you're from the streets, you know that 86 means the cops are coming. So they run, and I just go, then the lights come on. I didn't get anything. The lights come on behind me. I get to the stop sign. I'm pulled over, and it was Deputy John Reddick. We're good friends today. Comes up to my window and says, what are you doing in this part of town? I got to tell you, I lied. I had a teenage son at the time that had gone with his wife, got married young, and went to North Carolina. So I said, oh, well, I'm looking for my teenage son. He goes, well, you don't need to be in this part of town. Well, the good addict in me goes around the block and goes, he didn't check my Brad. So let me just go back around. So I went back around, and I got it. Now I got it, and I'm looking, and there's no cars. So I get off of Martin Luther King Boulevard. I get on East Ocean. I'm looking. By this time, it's after 11 o'clock at night. No cars. I still have it in my hand. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. I haven't smoked crack in 3 years. I'm probably going to have something to bring me down. So I better stop and get some beer, because I'm going to be by myself after I smoke it. I'm going to have to try to go to sleep. So I pull into Circle K. Still got it in my hand. No cars were around. So I go into the Circle K. I buy a 6-pack of beer. Still got it in my hand. I walk out the door. You would think somebody murdered somebody. There was 8 cop cars in the parking lot, got their lights on, and I see John Reddick. Evidently, somebody there was a snitch and said that my car, had come back around, bought it, because I didn't see any cars. So somebody, and it got to John Reddick's car, so he put it out into all the cars, and they were in that parking lot. And he came up to me. I still got it in my hand, y'all. I could have swallowed it, but I still got it in my hand, so maybe something deep inside me was, But anyway, so they searched my car. They're searching my mouth. I'm going like this. And then one of the cops goes, he says, open your hand. I opened it. He said, we don't play that in Stewart. Took me to jail. But when I got to jail, they fingerprinted me and mugged me in Stewart. I got to make a phone call. Well, I called a guy that was in AA that was a bondsman. He came and bonded me out. The next day was my AA meeting. I went down there. They had a cake. Place is packed. And my sponsor's up there, and she's going, I got a medallion for a girl I'm so proud of. She's been working so hard. Claire, come here and get your 3-year medallion. I stood up and I said, I can't take it. I got to take a blue chip. I went to jail last night. And I started to cry. You could have dropped a pin. Let me tell y'all something, though. When I walked out of there, about 5 people came up to me, bawling their eyes out. I've been lying. I've been coming in here. I'm not sober. So anyway, I rededicated my life. I did. I had to go tell my godparents. They got me a good lawyer, put like $50,000 on a lawyer. Got me a lawyer, and I did not go to court till almost a year to the day that I got busted. Now, mind you, I had gotten my boss, they did not fire me. I knew I had to tell them because they were going to read it in the paper. It was very humbling because they were a very rich Jewish family, you know, and the only one that they would let watch their dogs was me. They gave me the combination to their home. I can't even tell you how many millions of dollars that home was, but I had to tell them, and they were so gracious. They said, Claire, you do a good job. I'm glad you told us the truth. They didn't fire me, but I did tell them, I can't work past 5 anymore, and I can't work on Sundays. I got to get back to church, and I got to get to my meetings. So, a year to the day, I'm on my knees in my apartment, and I meant it from the very depth of my soul. I was going to get sentenced. The state wanted to give me 3 years in prison because of my rap sheet from years ago. They were not coming off 3 years in prison. And my lawyer still wasn't sure. He's like, we're going to do the best we can. But I'm on my knees, and I'm praying, and I said, I meant it. I meant it. I said, Lord, if you mean for me to go to jail today, use me in there. If you mean for me to be out here, use me out here. The voice was so prevalent, I thought a man was standing behind me and said, you're not going to jail, but you're going to jail. I jumped up and I looked behind me, there's no man. I'm like, I'm not going to jail, but I'm going, what does that mean? You know, and now it's just a still small voice in my head. You're not going to jail, but you're going to jail. I'm like, Lord, I don't understand this, but I trust you. I get to the courthouse, there's 6 people in front of me. Every one of them got prison time or a year in the county. I don't think anybody got less than that. So now it's my turn. It's still that still small voice. You're not going to jail, but you're going to jail. So I get up there. Judge looks at me, looks down at the paper, looks back at me, and then looks back down. And it probably was just a moment, but it seemed like an eternity. Looks back up and said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 3 years. When he said, I thought, that's it, I'm gone. Probation. But when you leave here, I want you to go directly from Martin County Courthouse to Martin County Jail, and I want you to meet with Chaplain L.C. Campbell, and I want you to do 40 hours with inmates under the age of 23. I went, I can do that. And I hated to be even near a jail. I did. TJ was too young then to be going in and out of jail, but I did not. I thought they'd keep me on a warrant I forgot about, but seriously. But when I went over there, here's L.C. in uniform, got the flat top, in his office, and he goes, I've been with this department, I think he said 32, maybe it was 22, but for how many years? He goes, I have never heard of a convicted felon getting sentenced from the courthouse to the jailhouse. He goes, you're not even allowed to come in here on probation. God's got something for you to do. And my 40 hours turned into 7 years. That wasn't me. After my 40 hours, I went to LC and I said, can I stay? He goes, you're already here. You know, LC, anybody that knew LC, I miss him. But, you know, my 40 turned into 7. But 7 years later is when the hurricanes, Francis and Jean, I thought I was in a good relationship with somebody that was in recovery. 19 years, said he wanted to marry me, was going to church with me. And TJ and I were in a house in Stewart. He bought this house he worked for McDonnell Douglas, Vought Aircraft. He worked for Vought. He was transferred from California here. And so he bought a house in Port St. Lucie. And the house TJ and I were living in, the guy called me. He was in AA. And he worked for McDonnell Douglas also. And he moved from here to St. Augustine. And so I was paying rent, just sending him the money for the rent. Out of the blue, he goes, Claire, sorry, but you got 30 days to move. I sold the house. And I didn't have anything on paper because he was a friend. So Miles, my ex, says, Claire, I bought that house. You and TJ could move in there. I'm like, no, we're not married. He goes, Claire, I got the master bedroom. You and TJ can have the 2 bedrooms on the other side of the house with a bathroom. And I did, because nobody was taking me in with my teenage son, who was at that time getting in a lot of trouble, But anyway, when the hurricanes came and thinking this man's going to marry me, now it was just the opposite. Introduced him to a friend of mine and took off with her and married her 3 weeks later. But it's okay. At the time I was really broken and I just fell apart about that. I think what I'm getting at is to say this. As Christians, and Christians in recovery, what Christians not in recovery, it doesn't matter, to stay close to people that love you. That's what I didn't do. A lot of times when I would go through something really hurtful, that's when and just recently I went through something that just almost took me out with anyway, just some very personal things, getting hacked and all that. But you know what? I'm seeing more and more what God is showing me. Stay connected. Stay connected with people that love you and care about you. And what I had to learn, and I wrote this down, is I had to learn, instead of asking God to change my circumstances, I need to learn to ask God how these circumstances could change me. Okay, I've also learned that Satan doesn't just want to devour me, he wants to devour my influence. I know that jail, for me to meet LC, God was opening a door for me, and that's what I told Chaplain Dave Thompson. This is something that God did, not me. I didn't go to jail I'm in recovery. Can I go talk to people? Can I go do that? No, I didn't. I didn't want to go near a jail. God did that. And so what the Lord is showing me, when I've called you, and I'm going to equip you to things that I've called you to do, I always make a way. Just be willing to walk through the door and do what I've called you to do. And ever since I look back and I see God, the doors of CareNet is one of them, through abortion, open that door, Good Samaritan, how he's tried to shut those doors because he doesn't want me to talk to those people. He doesn't want me to love on them. He doesn't want me to tell them about Jesus. He doesn't want me to share my experience with them about what he has done for me. I would not be standing up here right now, and Lyle's seen me in a very bad place, Chap, Linda, a lot of people, if it wasn't for God's grace and him saying, I'm not done. I am not done. God has used my circumstances to make me better, and he will use yours too. 2 of my favorite scriptures, my life script, but those who hope, Isaiah 40:31, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings of eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. One more. 1 Peter 5:10, the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong and firm and steadfast. Hallelujah. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to take that from you again, so I can...
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Okay, so thank you all, and thank you, Claire. Awesome. I knew it would be. I've known Claire well enough and long enough to know most of that story. Not all of it, but most of it, and I knew that you guys would appreciate it too. God is good. If you are familiar at all with any other 12-step type tradition, you'll know that they do chip systems. Well, here we do it a little different. We use a cross. So we do, instead of what most places do, a white chip, we do what we call a surrender cross. And it's a little different because this is anything that you want to lay at the foot of the cross. It doesn't have to be that you were using yesterday and you're going to stop using today. This is anything that has burdened you that you want to leave at the foot of the cross. We want to give you one of these crosses. We call it a surrender cross, so you can surrender it to the Lord and let him carry for you. And the beauty of this is, for me, is that I can carry this around in my pocket, around my rear view, attached to my keys, around my neck, whatever it is, as a reminder that I've laid it on Jesus and that he will carry it, that his yoke is easy and his burden is light, and he will carry my burdens for me, because my tendency is to give it to him and then pick it back up the next day. And I want him to carry it the whole time, because I haven't done a very good job. So if you would like a surrender cross, they're going to be over here, and this is all off camera, the other side there. I also want you to come and get a recovery Bible if you don't have one. If you've got a loved one who could use one and doesn't have one, please get them. That is most of what we do with the tithes and offerings that we collect. We do pay a tithe of that to here and to Recovery Church Movement. If you're not familiar with Recovery Church Movement, in 2 years we've gone from one location to over 30, and we're looking to have it at 50 by the end of the year, and we would like to have a Recovery Church in every city because we believe God is doing good things. Yeah. So it's also the last day of the month on Testimony Night. We celebrate anniversaries. Does anybody have a 30 days? Anybody want to celebrate 60? 90? How about anybody have an anniversary this month? Well, y'all made my life easy. How many years? 30 years. Praise God. Well, you might have got me. I think the largest cross I have is 28 years, but I'll have to look and see. I might have a 30 for you. I got to be better prepared. I got to make up more of them, but we have them for each year. So, anybody else I'm sorry to see y'all. Anybody else have an anniversary this month? All right. Well, thank you, Claire. Thank you all.